Hello, and welcome to the State of the City address. Whether you are streaming online, joining a social media watch party, or you are viewing on TV Tacoma, thank you for tuning in. Tonight's address will be the third given by Mayor Victoria Woodards. During that time, it has been an address that people have been able to attend in many ways, including all the various channels that we are using tonight. Although there are currently no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Pierce County, after hearing coronavirus concerns in the community and with a desire to exercise an abundance of precaution, Mayor Woodards made the choice to embrace a virtual State of the City address this year. Modifying the format of this multimedia event was a convenient way to align with other common sense practices being used by the city administration and people in all sectors of our community. Following the sound advice of Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, no changes have been made in the city services. All right, now that you are cozy at home or watching with friends, let's get to it. A little insider tip before I introduce the mayor. Tonight's address is interactive. In addition to joining the conversation online with hashtag SOTC253, there will be a special way that you can participate in a big announcement Mayor Woodards will roll out tonight, so stay tuned. Whether Tacoma is a place where we raise children, pursue entrepreneurship, earn our education, or make a difference, community engagement and strong leadership are the key to making sure our destiny is one we can be proud of. A destiny that includes prosperity for the city's businesses as well as all who live and work here. I know Mayor Woodards' collaborative style of leadership can bring that kind of future into focus for all of Tacoma. Chair of the Mayor's Youth Commission, Rosemary Sissel, agrees. She stated that Mayor Woodards can especially bring the future into focus for the city's youth. She has been instrumental in starting the Mayor's Youth Commission of Tacoma and is passionate about involving our voices in government. She listens to us, she respects us as equals, and our conversations with her are vibrant, full of all the life and growth that she sees we can bring to our community. And she gives the best hugs, and no one can disagree with that. Before the mayor's comments, this year's address will open with a presentation of poet Christian Page's poem, Remember Our Future. Please join me in watching.
Do you remember our future? When we redesigned and redefined community, when we constructed coalitions of change-creating conglomerates that wouldn't accept moderate when it came to their mission, who went past tolerant when it came to their difference, do you remember our commitment? When we proved that red lines were written in pencil, when we knocked down walls and turned them into bridges that we named after the legends that were once excluded, do you remember loving your neighbor? For no other reason than the fact that their heart beat to a rhythm that made you dance, will you tell the stories to our youth? Reminding them that brilliance knows no age, that seeds grow to be trees that stand over the world in need of their shade, that they are capable of reclamation and recreation, that with the application of their declarations and passion that they could reimagine a city that reflects their humanity, elegantly and effortlessly distributing the resources equitably, referencing the bodies that stand most affected, letting the evidence of their success being no resident feeling neglected, bringing home back to housing, ethos back to education, equity back to economy, voices back to vision. Do you remember our trust, our faith, our belief, our destiny? Do you remember with this power comes great responsibility? Do you remember these faces, these hearts, these shades, these hues? Do you remember our future? Good. Then make sure our future remembers you.
And now, to everyone in attendance and those watching on TV Tacoma, I give you the Honorable Mayor of Tacoma, Victoria Woodards, as she presents the City of Tacoma's 2020 State of the City Address, Our Future in Focus.
Will our future remember you? It's a powerful question. Tacoma, thank you for joining me for the 2020 State of the City Address, a night for bringing our future into focus. I don't think we could have kicked off this evening with a more relevant piece, and I want to recognize Christian Page for writing such a powerful and impactful spoken word. We all make choices that, as Christian Page alluded to, will shape the future of Tacoma. While the countless fleeting moments that make up our individual day-to-day routines at times might seem minor, as they all say, it's in the details. What we choose to do in each of these moments, what we prioritize as individuals, these choices all matter. Because collectively, these elements will determine our direction as a community and ultimately the future of our great city. Because of this, it's important that we take time to pause, to reflect, and to evaluate where we are, the outcomes of our past actions, and what we can do in the here and now to build our collective strengths as a community united in purpose. We as a community get to choose not only what we do and where we invest our resources, but how we do it, including how we treat each other along the way. So many of the challenges we face as a community are complicated. They are beyond the control of any one person or government, and they cannot be solved quickly. Simply put, we're in this together for the long haul. While I'll speak tonight about many complex issues facing Tacoma, I'm going to give myself some time to warm up by talking about something that some would say is more straightforward, and that's the city's budget. This is a budget year, and while finances are considered to be a dry topic sometimes, there is something to be excited about. The city's biennial budget is developed with input and feedback from the community. This is important because the completed budget will reflect what is important to our city and our priorities and our values. The city's budget represents an investment of more than $3 billion, including $500 million in the city's general fund. And this investment supports our local infrastructure, utilities, and other essential services we provide to the community. Tacoma's current 2019-2020 budget is solid and balanced, with healthy reserves and a clean audit. As I mentioned previously, our financial decisions are not made in isolation. It is important to me and the City Council that the biennial budget reflects your priorities, your vision, and our community's vision. Also helping us navigate the biennial budget planning process is Tacoma 2025, a community-informed strategic plan that guides the actions of every function across the city. Another way that we are incorporating the community's thoughts as we craft the budget is through community survey results. We appreciate those who have weighed in, and I want you to know that there will be many, many more opportunities for you to share your thoughts and give feedback. One upcoming opportunity to do that will be the fun-filled T-Town Services Expo. This interactive event lets us showcase all the services that the city provides and invites residents of all ages to give feedback, to learn, and to play. This fun-free, family-filled event will be held on March 28th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Tacoma Dome. There will be plenty of free parking, and it's accessible by transit. So I hope all of you will come and join us and learn more about your city services. For just a moment, I'd like to touch on some especially voter-approved funding, those dollars which make up our Streets Initiative. In 2019, 200 blocks of city roads were reconstructed through the Streets Initiative, and nearly 500 more received maintenance. Since the start of the program in 2016, over 2,300 blocks have been completed, and work will commence on 600 more in 2020. This will put us at over 35% of the residential street network maintained in the first half of this 10-year process, meaning we are on track to meet or exceed our goal of improving Tacoma streets. In addition to approving this funding, voters recently elected Councilmember John Hines to help us ensure that we continue to devote resources to our day-to-day work, like street repairs, and to make sure that we do it extremely well. Speaking of the budget, one thing we can always count on to be a priority is public safety. While public safety can mean many things to many people, roughly 68% of our last general fund budget was dedicated to police, fire, and criminal justice services. While they are not solely responsible for everything that defines how safe our community feels, we know that our police department plays a vital role in making this happen. First of all, let me acknowledge the hard work of our folks in blue. The police department was dispatched to over 90,000 calls for service in 2019. Additionally, during their daily patrols throughout Tacoma, officers initiated more than 20,000 contacts for issues such as traffic violations or safety checks. When we consider the impacts of gun violence over the last year, we know we have a number of challenges to address. Conversations on gun violence are happening across the country and in our city, and these conversations are often marked by deep division alongside grief and fear. In 2019, an uptick of gun violence impacted many parts of our region, and Tacoma specifically had more than 155 drive-by shootings and a shocking 24 homicides. This is an increase of nearly 30% in both drive-by shootings and homicides. With you, we have keenly felt the loss of each life and the deep impacts those losses have on our community and our collective sense of safety. While we continue to be supportive of violence prevention efforts, I am proud that our police department rapidly mobilized to deploy resources to the areas of greatest concern. Recognizing that gun violence is a complex issue requiring effective collaboration, they worked in partnership with the Puyallup Tribal Police, Pierce County Sheriff Department, and others to provide a comprehensive response. Because of these dedicated efforts, the vast majority of last year's homicides have been solved. Additionally, the department joined leaders in standing alongside the community as they mobilized, marched, and stood alongside each other against violence of any kind. When I think about the profound pain of parents who have lost their children to gun violence, a loss that no parent should ever have to grapple with, my heart breaks. At the same time, I'm compelled to recognize how courageous these parents are. Even in the midst of losing their children, they continue to advocate to prevent future violence. While Tacoma has been fortunate to have long-standing local organizers, this uptick drove new faces to join this movement, including those who in the past and presently have been impacted by violence. They know firsthand what it's like to be caught up in the cycle of violence and vengeance. This is because they themselves were gang members or had ties to gangs in a past chapter of Tacoma's history. And they now are standing together saying, enough is enough. One person told me, I took so much from Tacoma when I was younger. It's now my time to give back. I admire the courage it must have taken to change so dramatically and to change the course of their life and the impact on this community. In discussing the work around gun violence in our community, I want to recognize Councilmember Catherine Ushka for convening leaders from across the community on this important issue and for the lobbying she is doing in support of state legislation related to gun safety. As we think about how we address public safety moving forward, it's about more than how many officers we have. We hired 42 officers in 2019, and filling vacancies will continue to be a priority in 2020. However, we need to ensure that we are setting up our officers to give community the highest possible service. In past budget cycles, the council has raised valid questions on the number of officers being funded. With the number of officers climbing back towards pre-recession levels, we are still nowhere near pre-recession service, and we are hearing calls of increased service every day. The world of policing is changing and is seeing rapid change. That's why this year, the council has funded a staffing study that will inform us about staffing levels and other changes we need to make to increase the level of service throughout Tacoma. Through Project Peace, we are also continuing to enhance the way we interact with community. From working as a part of an innovation team, gathering first-person feedback from residents of color, to creating a youth cadre that encourages connection with the younger residents they serve. Our police officers know that efforts to strengthen relationships with our community are essential and must continue. In the spirit of building community trust and setting a high standard of accountability, our police department is also continuing to ask themselves serious questions about how they can improve. All losses of life are tragic. And when they happen as a result of an officer-involved shooting, we owe families and the community feeling those tragic losses the highest degree of transparency and accountability. Due to this and the passage of I-940, our police department has made changes this year in the processes used for these investigations. They are working with partners to develop a regional community-trusted investigation process for officer-involved shootings and uses of deadly force. At the same time, our police department has already moved to a protocol where these incidents are investigated independently by an outside agency. Because these investigations are essential in giving peace of mind to grieving families and establishing trust between law enforcement and members of our community, I am calling on our police department to publicly share updates on these efforts to establish a region-wide approach to independent investigations. This work must continue until everyone in our community can have faith that those holding authority do so only in the spirit of public service and with the highest level of accountability. As I mentioned earlier, safety means different things to different residents. For many, it's about getting to work, the park, a school, the grocery store, or even a senior center safely. Whether walking, biking, wheeling, stroller pushing, or riding a scooter around town, the council has clearly expressed a desire to advance safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. Started under the leadership of Councilmember Chris Beal in 2019 and joined by new Councilmember Christina Walker, just 2 weeks ago, the council unanimously passed a resolution approving Vision Zero, an initiative that seeks to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries in the city of Tacoma. Improvements in mobility benefit everyone, whether you're using your feet, a stroller, a walker, or a wheelchair. When our seniors can get around town easily, they are able to age in place as active members that enhance our community. That is why this work dovetails with Tacoma's recent designation as an age-friendly city. Under the leadership of Councilmember Lillian Hunter, we recently joined the AARP, the World Health Organization, and age-friendly cities across the nation in prioritizing being a community where people can grow up and grow old with ease. Safety also means being able to live and love just as you are. Over the last year, it was more visible than ever that Tacoma is a city where we will stand up and support and defend our LGBTQ+ neighbors. In 2019, I was joined by State Speaker of the House Lori Jenkins, Puyallup Tribal Council Member Annette Bryan, and former Council Member Ryan Mello, shown here with a Summer Jobs 253 intern and a Lincoln High School student to raise the pride flag over the Tacoma Dome for the first time ever. What a symbolic, epic way to celebrate pride. We took concrete actions this year as well. Building on work done by the city's Human Rights Commission, we passed an ordinance last summer requiring that all public single occupancy restrooms are labeled as gender neutral. In addition to addressing the needs and rights of Tacoma's transgender and non-binary community, this law will also benefit many people, including anyone who needs assistance of a parent or a caregiver of a different gender. While we are still on the topic of safety, I want to take some time to share just a few highlights of the work done by our amazing fire department this year. They dispatched response units to more than 4,800 emergency incidents. In an effort to prepare residents for potential emergencies, they expanded their CPR Sunday program to a CPR weekend. More than 2,000 residents registered for the events at Foss High School and the Eastside Community Center. They also introduced the Pulse Point app, which allows dispatchers to send out mobile phone alerts to resident responders nearby when a person requires CPR in a public place. While talking about our fire department, I also want to share an example of how they've been working to meet our organizational-wide goal of having employees reflect the diversity of Tacoma. They partnered with our Human Resources Department to host a women's firefighter workshop. The 40 women from our community who attended met and spoke with women who are career firefighters. Not only did they hear from these experienced, highly trained professionals, they were also provided information on how to apply to join the fire department. Of a recent recruit class of 24 firefighters, 9 of those hired were women. And with a cadet academy of 17 individuals interested in a career in firefighting, 9 of them were women as well, a huge improvement from our past efforts. In light of these great strides and an acknowledgement that this career is not just for men alone, Maria Stonewell took the initiative to request the renaming of Fireman's Park located downtown to Firefighters Park. I agree with her that it's time to change this language that we use for this public park so that it is inclusive of everyone who works for the fire department. That's why tonight, I want to announce that I will be bringing forward a resolution next month asking the City Council to join me in renaming this downtown gathering space as Firefighters Park. While the next topic I want to share is about safety for many of our neighbors, it is also about something that is vital to Tacoma's success. I often share that people of Tacoma are our greatest strength, and our diversity of residents and cultures is a big part of that. This is why Tacoma, in partnership with the Commission on Immigrant and Refugees Affairs, is paying close attention to the federal conversations happening on immigration. While our formal authority is limited, what is happening at the highest level of governments impacts us locally. That is why it's important for us to stay engaged. Our values are at odds with the federal government's position on immigration. It is up to all of us, even local government officials who have no say in how ICE operates, to keep the dignity and human needs of immigrants and refugees in the spotlight while federal lawmakers seek possible reforms. We have met with ICE officials numerous times and written Homeland Security Office of the Inspector General to express our concerns and to advocate that measures such as regularly publicly documented inspections of the Northwest ICE Processing Center are taken to address concerns of that our community has expressed about the health and dignity of detainees, including quality food, clean, dry clothes, access to medical care, limited use of solitary confinement, and timely communication with their legal representation. In the 2020 legislative session, the city requested a bill that would change state law to ensure that land use regulations enacted by the City Council in 2018 can remain in effect, restricting the expansion of the Northwest ICE Processing Center. While nothing is certain, we remain optimistic that we will see the bill pass before the legislative session ends later this month. We will also continue to advocate for legislation that would prohibit private detention centers statewide. There should never be a profit motive to detain human beings. To take this issue further, we will continue to lead and insert ourselves in any conversations taking place on this issue. We will work together to establish a future that is inclusive of our immigrant and refugee neighbors and eliminate the injustices they face. And we must build broader understanding across our community and strengthen our ability to discuss this often polarizing issue. That is why I have chosen our 2020 Tacoma Reads selection as a way to inspire more community dialogue on immigration. Tacoma Public Library, in collaboration with the Puyallup Tribe and key partners in 2019, showed us that library programming can inspire ideas, conversations, and community dialogue. This year, I'm excited to announce a riveting 2020 Tacoma Reads selection and a new logo that I hope will do the same. Just released in January, this year's selection is an unforgettable memoir filled with heartfelt and haunting images written by an award-winning poet and activist. Green Apple Books has called it a stunning meditation on what it means to be a man and a citizen, sharing both the author's joy and his sorrows while growing up undocumented in the United States. This year's Tacoma Reads selection is Children of the Land by Marcelo Hernandez Castillo. We are thrilled to bring this award-winning writer to Tacoma later this year. But that's not all. We will be adding a young adult and children's selections to the Tacoma Reads this year so that readers of all ages can participate. These titles are the Young Readers edition of Dear America by Jose Antonio Vargas and Dreamers by Juji Morales. I'm looking forward to the conversations we will have as a community and what we will learn from engaging with these talented authors and one another. Okay, now that I'm done with 68% of my speech and I've been talking about safety, it's time to move on. And I'd like to switch gears to another topic that I'm very passionate about. When we think about Tacoma's future, I can't help but think of youth. Today's young people will inherit the challenges we have not resolved. They also deserve a voice in the conversations we are having right now on topics like the climate crisis, jobs, homelessness, affordability, and infrastructure, because they are not just our future, they are our present. Tacoma's young people are impacted every day by the decisions we make as adults. While they might use different words when talking about these decisions, they know how infrastructure improvements impact their routes to schools, that quality parks that they play in, and the kinds of activities available to them outside of school. This is why I set out to create Tacoma's first ever Youth Commission. Last year, I told you how we had overwhelming interest from young people all across the city. Now they have set their formal structure and elected leadership. As our Youth Commission members work with each other and young people across the country and oversee projects right here at home, they are honing advanced skills in leadership and policy development. So watch out. This annual address may very well be given by one of them in the not too distant future. The work we have done with our youth has been made possible with the help of many partners. And looking ahead to 2020 and beyond, I'm excited by the projects they have in the works and the ways we can involve youth in our city and in making decisions about our future. One thing in particular that we've heard from our youth in 2019 loud and clear, and that is climate change is real, and it is an urgent issue that demands action from all levels of government. During the youth climate strike, hundreds of Tacoma young people marched to City Hall and met with local leaders to discuss what must be done to affect climate change. Because our young people also believe how something is done is just as important as what is done, they communicated to us that this work must be done with an equity lens, and I agree. Their recommendations served as a basis for the Tacoma City Council to pass a resolution declaring a climate emergency. I say proudly tonight that with the help of our young leaders, we were the first city in Washington state to make this declaration. Our vote also followed the Puyallup tribe, who passed their climate emergency legislation earlier the same day. In our resolution, we committed to a number of specific actions to mitigate the impacts of climate change, including an update of our environmental action plan. I was honored to work alongside engaged youth, the Sunrise Movement, 350 Tacoma, and my peers who passionately championed this resolution. This year will also mark the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. The city's Office of Environmental Policy and Sustainability is engaged in a county-wide effort to celebrate trees, and inspire tree planting campaign resulted in a healthy tree for every child in Pierce County. This is about 200,000 trees between Earth Day this year and Earth Day in 2021. As we take time tonight to focus on our future, I want to reiterate loud and clear that Tacomans of all ages deserve clean air, a healthy Puget Sound, green jobs, and leaders committed to sustainable progress and growth. When we talk about how to make a more sustainable, future-ready Tacoma, our conversation must include transit. How we get from place to place is an issue that impacts not only the environment, but also the cost of living. For many families, transportation is the second highest expense in their budget. Mass transit helps us extend the viability of our existing freeways by reducing the number of cars on the road while decreasing the #1 source of carbon emissions. As we bring our future into focus, we must envision this: Tacoma being home to a state-of-the-art, multimodal transportation hub for the entire South Sound region. If mass transit is going to be successful, it needs to be convenient and accessible for everyone. In the work I'm doing on Sound Transit and Pierce Transit boards, it has become clear that the future of Tacoma includes more connectedness. We have been given the opportunity and the challenge of making what I call a 50-year decision on transit that will have long-lasting impacts on the life of Tacomans for generations. Pierce Transit definitely has the environment on their mind. They already have one of the cleanest fleets in the nation, and now they are taking things a step further by adding hybrid electric buses. 3 of them are currently in service, and 3 more are on the way. In another move that is both innovative and sustainable, Pierce Transit leveraged partnerships last year to add plug-in hybrid electric van pools. And I'm proud that Tacoma Public Utilities was a part of that great work. Speaking of partnerships, Pierce Transit, the City of Tacoma, and Tacoma Public Schools came together to make Orca cards free for all the district's high schoolers. These passes will allow students to more easily access the expanded arts, cultural, science, and heritage experiences that Tacoma Creates is working to make available across the city. We've talked a little about our environment and transit. There are some topics like planning and code compliance that touch on those things and more. Setting the proper course for future development in Tacoma is something we're also focused on. Being strategic about how today's choices impact Tacoma of tomorrow involves thoughtful land use planning. Let's take the current tide flats process, sub-area planning process, as an example. Last year, I told you how 4 government agencies were partnering with the City of Tacoma on discussing how we balance over the next several decades the resources offered by the tide flats with the needs of our community. The level of collaboration that has taken place in the development of the tide flats sub-area plan is unprecedented. And there will be lots of opportunities for community members to help write history as they weigh in on the future of this important area. As we work to plan a great future for Tacoma, we cannot ignore the impacts that immediate actions will have here as well. In response to the community and the City Council, Planning and Development Services is improving their community engagement efforts for construction projects. Starting in February, the city began requiring large commercial projects and residential projects with 5 or more units to have a sign posted on their property showing a drawing of the proposed development and contact information for both the developer and city staff. Code compliant issues like garbage, junk cars, overgrown vegetation, unsafe structures, and noise also have an immediate impact on neighborhoods. In 2019 alone, code compliance resolved over 4,200 concerns related to these topics. They also work to shorten the time it takes to close a complaint, resolving issues on an average of nearly 2 weeks faster than the previous year. Speaking of my favorite topic, collaboration, with council support and advocacy, the state legislature has allocated more than $1 million to fund the first time ever pilot program to coordinate cleanups of state-owned property throughout Tacoma between June of 2019 and June of 2021. We as a city will continue to seek innovative solutions to issues that impact the quality of life in Tacoma. Last year, I talked with you about jobs, and this remains a priority for me because jobs open doors to greater opportunities, and we want to make sure that they're accessible to all Tacomans. First, we want to be conscientious about the kinds of jobs and opportunities the city creates directly through contracting. This is why the council and I are proud of our efforts like equity in contracting. This initiative is improving city solicitation processes for minority and women-owned businesses, and it is already showing early wins. Businesses like Blue Shift Media, a Native American-owned production company who was initially hesitant about bidding on city work. They are now not only bidding, but they have been successful in their efforts. This year, after a competitive process, Blue Shift Media was awarded a contract to produce pedestrian safety videos for Tacoma's Safe Routes to Schools program. It is work like this that makes Tacoma a statewide leader in ensuring the equitable utilization of diverse businesses and will continue to support homegrown talent. In addition to the types of jobs the city creates directly, we want the kind of businesses in Tacoma who will create sustainable living wage jobs, like the 50 jobs currently created by the Tacoma Baking Company, with a respectful starting wage and benefits. This business also prioritizes local hires. But it's not just them. Businesses across all sectors are establishing or gaining a presence in Tacoma. Here are just a few businesses who have decided to make it Tacoma. Fibercar, McMinimans, SLI, Sound Credit Union, WWL, the ever-expanding Tool Gauge, and we also have a number of new tech firms, including Immunocellchem, Humming, Give in Kind, HealthFlow, and Cyber Business Analytics. And coming soon to downtown Tacoma, Tote Maritime, the Convention Center Hotel, the expansion of Eisenhower Carlson law offices, and recently in the news, GSA. Phew, that's a lot of names. But that's just a sampling, that's a small sampling of the businesses who represent more than 1,000 new jobs here in Tacoma. Thanks to the many amenities in our flourishing city and the new and growing businesses like these, they will help us meet our 2025 strategic plan goal to increase the number of diverse, livable wage jobs throughout Tacoma. In this goal, we are poised to capitalize on the region's success. Our region recently ranked 10th in the nation for most dynamic metropolitans. This ranking reminds us that the region-wide partnerships are vitally important as we continue to work to make our Tacoma a great place to do business. To take advantage of the current market, we spent time last year developing the city's economic development strategic plan. The plan is comprehensive. It has 8 primary objectives, and all are advanced by 37 strategies and 124 actions to be executed over a 5-year period. I could give an entire speech tonight on this plan alone, but since there's a lot going on in the city, I would encourage all of you who are interested in reading it and diving in to learn more to check it out on the city's website. Now we implement. The city will be jumping right into the 39 priority actions and will focus our resources in the most impactful way possible. And along with Councilmember Robert Toms, continuing his role as chair of the city's Economic and Development Committee, I know this work will be overseen by a strong leader. In addition to keeping existing businesses growing, we believe that Tacoma is a great place for new businesses as well. That's why I'm excited to announce that we are partnering with Jolt Biotech and Surge Tacoma to present the Tacoma Challenge. Is your startup business ready to accelerate? With the support of our partners, we are offering 3 companies up to $100,000 in awards to move their headquarters to Tacoma. Winners will receive such benefits as a year of free rent in a tech co-working space, sales consulting, legal services, marketing assistance, cloud services, and more, along with up to $40,000 of startup capital funding to establish their dream business right here in Tacoma. The Tacoma Challenge is just one initiative that shows that both government leaders and for-profit sector business believe that Tacoma is a great place to start a company. You can visit tacomachallenge.org right now to learn more, but I hope you'll wait till after my speech before you go check it out. But whether you are a new Tacoma business, one looking to expand, or interested in relocating, part of helping Tacoma businesses thrive is providing a predictable and hassle-free development environment. In 2019, the city received more than 10,000 applications for building permits. We've improved our level of service in this area as well, with new commercial and residential projects getting permitted up to 20% faster. We are also piloting a new restaurant program to increase the quality of engagement with applicants and to reduce the amount of time needed to process these permits. Can't you tell by all the new restaurants popping up in Tacoma? As we think about the things that keep our restaurants, retail shops, sports teams, theaters, and hospitality industry humming, we cannot forget Tacoma's guests. Overseeing the Tacoma Dome, as well as the Greater Tacoma Convention Center, our events and venues team does us proud. In fact, the team received so many awards and recognitions over the past year that I can't name them all tonight. But the Tacoma Dome in particular is getting a whole lot of attention. The Dome recently achieved the highest national and worldwide rankings in its history, putting it on par with other major venues in New York, Los Angeles, and London. Tacoma's reputation as a destination for top events and entertainment is locked in, and people are just now discovering what we've already all known. But helping to bring visitors to Tacoma is also going to be the new sparkling Emerald Queen Casino on I-5. I'm sure you've seen it. In fact, how can you miss it? The Puyallup tribe is bringing our region Vegas quality gaming that is sure to draw in crowds. As we bring online the new Marriott Hotel by the Convention Center, there will be even more beds for all of those visiting heads. That's why this August, I'm excited to announce that Tacoma will host the Mayor's Innovation Project annual meeting. This meeting will bring mayors and other leaders from across the nation into Tacoma to gather and learn best practices, and they will fill Tacoma's hotels and give us the opportunity to show off our city, our programs, our shopping, and our great restaurants. When we talk about the importance of tourism, it's only a reminder that we do not exist in a vacuum, and the future of our city is interconnected. We are an international port city with connections across the world, and our Sister Cities program helps with those partnerships. This year, we strengthened international relationships. We saw the donation and delivery of an ambulance to our sister city, Brovary, Ukraine. We celebrated notable sister city anniversaries with Kitakishu, Gunsung, and Fuzhou. Very recently, our Sister Cities Council mobilized to send much-needed medical supplies to Fuzhou and Mianyang after the coronavirus outbreak in China. And just last week, with the involvement of partners like Tacoma Community College and President Ivan Harold, and Bates Technical College and President Lin Zhou, we committed to future educational partnerships with our sister city in George, South Africa. Councilmember Connor McCarthy learned firsthand the value of international relationships in 2019 when he was the guest of Fuzhou. Since returning, He has led the council's efforts to provide support after the initial coronavirus outbreak in China, and he has many additional ideas of how we can build on these relationships in 2020. I'd like to shift gears now to focus on our most vulnerable residents and on an issue that our current and recent community survey reminds us is very important to everyone across this city. In this case, no reminder is needed because homelessness is one of the most visible crises that we face in this city. It's a heartbreaking humanitarian issue, and it is a matter of health and safety for all who were touched by it. While Tacoma struggles with homelessness, we are not alone. Nationally, Washington, D.C., New York, California, and Oregon proportionally face even larger crises than we do here in Washington State. While learning from the efforts of others, we must work together right here in Tacoma, in our own city, to address the basic human needs of our unsheltered neighbors. Since declaring homelessness a public health emergency in 2017, we have spent $18.8 million to address this issue. In 2020 alone, our budget includes $10.2 million to provide shelter for single adults, couples, and families, a youth and young adult drop-in center, a young adult overnight center, a homeless outreach team and encampment response services, food and clothing banks, employment services, and substance use and behavioral treatment services. While these investments are vital, funding alone will not resolve the current conditions of homelessness. The city has prioritized engagement with traditional service providers, the faith community, those experiencing homelessness, advocates, and nonprofits who seek to make a difference, so that barriers can be identified and new innovative solutions pursued. For example, as a result of our work to streamline permitting for temporary shelter sites, additional faith-based partners are stepping forward and have expressed an interest in being a part of the solution. Specifically, this has resulted in new sheltering options at Bethlehem Baptist, Alzheimer Memorial, and Shiloh Baptist churches. The city continues to prioritize the development of emergency sheltering options, including the temporary emergency micro shelter site demonstration project on Hilltop, and the 50 new permanent shelter beds being added by the Tacoma Rescue Mission this spring. While we still have a long way to go, I want to share that these efforts brought online 107 more beds in the past year. When sheltering beds are established, the kind of service that organizations provide makes a difference. For example, the Stability Site. Under the management of Catholic Community Services, we have served more than 380 individual clients since the summer of 2017. Out of these, I am proud to report that 125 have transitioned from the Stability Site into housing, an exceptionally high rate that shows the value of wraparound services. It's data like this that I believe tells an important story. Resolving homelessness requires more than temporary shelter alone. It requires that affordable and sometimes permanently supportive housing is there for people when they are ready to transition to independence. Today, I want to thank the many community members, faith organizations, advocates, service providers, and groups such as the Tacoma Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness and the students of St. Pat's Catholic School who have mobilized and gotten actively involved. I also want to assure you that with the recent extension of our state of emergency, that this issue will continue to be a priority for this city. While the road ahead is likely to be long and difficult, we remain engaged with our local community and cities across the nation on how to best address this issue. We will continue to fight for a future in Tacoma where no resident is without shelter. Alongside the community, we will be resilient and determined in our efforts to move forward with that vision. While we work to address homelessness, and we know it's essential, many of you know that I feel personally driven to go upstream and prevent it by ensuring that housing is attainable for all Tacomans and at every income level. This work remains urgent and pressing. Last summer, Tacoma was listed by Redfin as the nation's hottest housing market, with half of the homes selling in less than 2 weeks. And just last month, data confirmed that homes in Tacoma were selling faster than anywhere else in the country. Many of you know that the Affordable Housing Action Strategy outlines a number of ways that new housing units can be created, existing housing can be preserved, and households experiencing barriers can get the critical assistance they need. This plan is now being implemented, but what does it mean? With the many tools in the housing toolbox, it means a lot of things. Here are just a few examples. New tenant protections took effect in 2019, including relocation assistance. And I want to recognize Deputy Mayor Keith Blocker, chair of the Community Vitality and Safety Committee, for his leadership on this issue. We began to encourage a variety of housing types by approving an ordinance that gives residents the ability to construct accessory dwelling units, which are like mother-in-law apartments. These can sometimes be a more affordable option for our seniors, enabling them to age in place. Since the City Council amended requirements in May 2019 through January 2020, a total of 86 permit applications have already been submitted. We've also begun evaluating ways to streamline our permitting process and increase incentives for affordable housing projects. Tacoma Public Utilities and other city departments also identified various ways to assist households in crisis and keep them housed. Through local service providers, the city provided nearly $500,000 in temporary financial assistance to approximately 1,500 people for essential needs like rental and relocation assistance. And through a number of programs, Tacoma Public Utilities provided more than $4 million in utility assistance to approximately 9,100 customers. Essential services like these will help vulnerable families stay housed. Overall, between 2017 and 2019, 271 new single-family homes and 1,166 multifamily homes were added to Tacoma's housing stocks. Of these, 127 are under affordability restrictions, but we are just beginning to pick up momentum. There are 5,075 new units in permitting or planned over the next 3 years, including 845 affordable units for those at or below 80% of the median income. Here's just one example of units that began construction in 2019. Working with our partners at Tacoma Housing Authority, the city invested in the Arlington Drive Youth Campus. This campus will include 58 affordable apartments for young adults and a 12-bed emergency shelter for homeless youth. Those are the most vulnerable populations when they do not have a safe and permanent place to live. City staff went above and beyond during the permitting process to make sure that THA could meet their funding deadlines, setting the stage for working on many THA projects yet to come. And Michael Muir informed me last week that the construction is 2 months ahead of schedule and under budget. As mentioned last year, the city invested $1.2 million in our Housing Trust Fund. And this year we added to our assets by exercising an option provided under state law to retain some of the sales tax already being collected by the state for funding affordable housing. This funding should allow us to access more than $17 million over the next 20 years for local housing investments right here in Tacoma. The city also set criteria on how these funds will be used. Specifically, I want to let you know tonight that we will prioritize projects that serve households making at or below 60% of Tacoma's area median income, which is approximately $33,000. This means affordable units that serve our neighbors with the highest level of need. Like many complex issues we face in Tacoma, the issue of housing affordability is a regional one. You might recall in 2019, Pierce County Executive Bruce Stanmeyer, County Council Member Connie Ladenburg, and I began to have conversations with local elected leaders in Pierce County. While many cities, counties, and tribes have made individual contributions aimed at keeping housing attainable, Our long-term success relies on leaders coming together to exchange information and develop bold and innovative solutions together. By collaborating, we have the opportunity to increase household resilience, consumer spending power, and economic strength, not just in Tacoma, but across our broader region. Together, our coalition is currently known as SHAPE, which stands for South Sound Housing Affordability Partners, embracing the belief that our governments are stronger when we work together. We have committed to both act now and think about how we make partnership long-lasting. In the first quarter of 2020, we are engaged in coordinated lobbying and monitoring state legislation, compiling a centralized library of relevant housing policies and best practices, creating a countywide inventory of urban growth area land available for housing, and compiling a list of all funding sources for housing, including allowable uses and restrictions. And with our focus on the future, we are exploring forming a countywide coalition to sustain this work. I'm excited to see what we create as we collaborate together to shape the future of housing in Pierce County. Before I begin my final topic this evening, I want to thank my council colleagues. As you might have heard tonight, the issues that we work on as city leaders are challenging ones that deeply impact the lives of our community members. These city leaders join me as a team, working on issues of all kinds with the goal of creating the brightest possible future for Tacoma. It is an honor to serve alongside them. Together, we are working to respond to emergent needs, identify strategic priorities, and later this year, approve a biennial budget that best serves Tacoma. As some say, local government is where the rubber meets the road. This is tremendously challenging work that demands the highest level of commitments and accountability. And I hope that you will join me in appreciating all of them for the work they do in Tacoma. Throughout my remarks this evening, I have shared that my priorities alone do not drive the trajectory of our city. I've shared stories about how collaboration, partnership, and bipartisan cooperation can lead to unparalleled results that benefit Tacoma. We, like cities across the nation, face issues of deep complexity, nuance, unpredictability, and uncertainty. Challenges that far outstrip the resources we have to solve them alone. Challenges like homelessness, housing affordability, public safety, immigration, climate change, and balancing immediate human needs with the long-term investments needed to maintain our city. These are issues without easy answers. While the city will continue to do its part, there are areas with no tried and true path forward, areas where we are called upon to chart our own course. You might be tired of hearing me talk about collaboration, but trust me, I am not. Partnerships and cooperation give us opportunities to make the most meaningful differences. If we want, as the saying goes, to go far in making progress on these issues and to bring Tacoma aspirations into focus, then we cannot go alone. We collectively make Tacoma what it is. If we envision a Tacoma that remains livable, progressive, an international city regarded for the richness of its diverse population and its natural setting, an innovative Tacoma with the knowledge and resources to solve problems of today and ensure a vibrant and flourishing future, then we all need to show up and know that there is room for all of us to make a difference. Across our nation, divisions have deepened and inflammatory, hateful speech is being hurled between neighbors. And we are headed into a year that I can say with almost 100% assurance will include heated and divided national rhetoric. The news cycle will continue to spotlight self-righteous diatribes and overly simplified accusations of right and wrong. These things have the power to create real division among us right here in Tacoma, if we let them. Despite what we hear in the nightly news or across social media, I firmly believe that the Tacoma we know today, that we have worked hard to build, can continue to be different. Tacoma can continue to be better today and into the future. I ask you tonight to join me in showing our country that there is another way. In our recent community survey, we found that we have an engaged city. More than 75% of you come to council meetings, city events, or belong to community or faith groups, or actively volunteer. However, only 22% believe that their civic engagement and service is very impactful or impactful to our community. This saddens me because I would argue that there is nothing that makes a bigger difference than the desire to engage and serve. I'm going to ask you to join me in believing that each of us has the power to impact the lives of our friends, families, and neighbors every day. To innovate and improve the trajectory of our city, we need your ideas and your involvement. To build solutions that work for everyone in our community, we need to have the kinds of conversations where everyone feels welcome to share ideas. We need gracious space for our family and friends and neighbors to learn in public. And we need deep and enduring compassion that moves us to serve everyone who surrounds us. To build the best future for Tacoma that we can imagine, I want each of you to join me in a new initiative that we're calling Compassionate Tacoma. This initiative is founded on the belief that each of us have an ability to make Tacoma more welcoming, connected, resilient, and vibrant by listening and serving others with love. These are not just warm and fuzzy words to say here tonight and forget. In fact, I would challenge anyone who believes it is easy work. Enduring compassion requires strength and discipline if we are to maintain it in the most trying situations. Compassion can fuel both our curiosity and our courage. It can drive us to enter a room with those who have different opinions, truly listen, and gain understanding. This is not an easy thing. As Karen Armstrong, who founded the global movement, the Charter for Compassion, she reminds us, a compassionate city is an uncomfortable city. A city that is uncomfortable when anyone is homeless or hungry. Uncomfortable if every child isn't loved and given rich opportunities to grow and thrive. Uncomfortable when, as a community, we don't treat our neighbors as we wish to be treated. Let me be clear. Compassion is not refraining from speaking your truth. In fact, it means speaking up when it is unpopular in order to confront injustice and undo suffering. It's about dropping the weapons that often come with our words and speaking our truths with love. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, in speaking of love, we are not referring to some sentimental emotion. It would be nonsense to urge men to love their oppressors in an affectionate sense. When we're speaking of loving those who oppose us, it means nothing sentimental or basically affectionate. It means understanding, redeeming goodwill for all men, and an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. By ensuring our daily actions are guided by this kind of love, we can actively shape the brightest possible future for Tacoma. Science tells us that the impacts of compassion can be surprisingly widespread. Culminating years of research, Dr. Kelly Harding tells us that kindness can profoundly improve public health. In her book, The Rabbit Effect, she notes that experiencing kindness has real impacts. To share a few examples, it shields us from the impacts of stress, positively changes the biomarkers in our brain, and as discovered by those in the emerging field of epigenetics, it has the power to improve our health by changing the story of our DNA. Perhaps best of all, we can practice compassion at almost any moment of the day at work, at home, on the freeway, and in schools. I knew there was a reason I was such a hugger. But more seriously, by promoting action in alignment with these principles, this initiative has the power to advance goals from Tacoma 2025 strategic plan, embracing Tacoma's diversity of people, places, and cultures, grow and enhance the livability of Tacoma's neighborhoods, increase neighborhood safety, improve services to youth and vulnerable communities, and engage residents, stakeholders, and partners in the future of Tacoma. It is my deepest hope that Compassionate Tacoma will also change what we see in our next community survey, increasing the percentage of community members who believe they are able to have a positive impact on others. I am committed to moving these words into action by offering all residents and businesses a chance to commit to creating a more compassionate Tacoma, recognizing community members who live these values every day, and in partnership with United Way, dedicating time to service and challenging everyone in our community to volunteer for at least one act of compassion that lifts up our city, whether it's caring for an unsheltered resident, donating food, maintaining a trail, hosting a clothing drive, helping an elderly neighbor with yard work, or performing a random act of kindness. This is the work that calls on all of us collectively. Tonight, I want to ask each of you to join me in the Compassionate Tacoma campaign. Are you ready? Then take out your cell phones right now and text "I'm all in" to 253-650-0588. Again, I'm all in. And join me in making Tacoma a more welcoming, connected, resilient, and vibrant community by listening and serving others with love. I hope you will join me in this movement, and I hope that you will inspire others to do so as well. Those who text will be the first to know about ways to show they're all in and get notice of upcoming events. Like many cities across the nation, we have difficult work ahead of us. We have residents who are vulnerable and unsheltered, and immigrants and detainees whose dignity and safety are in question. We have a responsibility to provide streets and sidewalks that are safe for seniors and young families. We have an opportunity to provide cultural and arts experiences that reflect the talent and diversity of our whole community and inspire future generations. We have graduates who deserve the promise of opportunity in the workforce right here in Tacoma. We have a natural environment to protect for our own good and for the good of future generations. And we have workers of all ages who should be able to find housing without paying more than 30% of their income. With resourcefulness, innovation, collaboration, and yes, compassion. Together, we will bring a future into focus that is filled with opportunity and promise for every resident in Tacoma. At the end of the day, many of the issues we face will come and go, but the impact of how we treat each other will last a lifetime. To echo the words of Christian Page's moving opening poem, faces, hearts, shades, hues, and to this I add you. Will the future remember us? My answer, absolutely.
Thank you to Mayor Woodards for the 2020 State of the City address, and to you for tuning in. As the mayor shared, the strength of our city relies on all of us. I hope you share my excitement to see our future come into focus. If you have friends, family, and neighbors who were not able to watch tonight, this broadcast will be replayed on TV Tacoma and can be found on social media. Thank you, and good night.